All so much for being here. Delighted to have you join us for today's conversation. We know that for any organization, particularly for one as complicated and as large as a city, to accomplish big things, we need a clear set of goals we want to accomplish. We need a vision for what we want to do, a mission for how we plan to do it, a set of values for how we operate together as a team, and a set of clear, measurable, ambitious goals that can guide us even in hard times on maintaining a laser focus on the things that are most important. And so that is why we are excited to be with you today to talk through that structure that this team has built collaboratively with the city. You'll see up here with us all of our agency heads and division leaders who have together been at this process with us for the last 2 months or so to help an organization that is in many ways a long and existing organization and is in some ways a startup. Many of the folks on this stage are only here for 1 or 2 or 3 months. I've been here 6. So we both needed to learn from all the work that's been done and then be able to chart a new path for where we think the city can go and is capable of going in the years ahead. And so we want to unveil for you today what will be the first in a series of annual goal conversations, but we want to start with our first one here in 2024. As part of that, we wanted to get clear on what we believed the city's mission was. So I want to start with 2 things, both our vision and our mission as a city. Obviously, there have been versions of this in the past. We think this team, this moment, this set of challenges should be clear about that. So we've laid out a vision that you'll see here, which says, together, we can build a Denver that is vibrant, affordable, and safe for all. A mission we've laid out is, how do we go about doing that work? What is the mindset we bring to approaching those challenges? And this is a phrase we like to use, which is, our problems are solvable, and we are the ones to solve them. We know the city faces real challenges. We believe each of those problems are solvable by both the city employees that we have assembled and the community members who are willing to step up and lean in on the hardest issues. And so these guide our belief about what we're here to accomplish and how it is that we go about accomplishing them. We also think it's critical that any organization has a set of core values. What are the things that govern how we operate with each other and how we operate with the public? And we think those should be clear, should be simple, should be easy to remember. And that's why we've helped craft these 3: listen, dare, and deliver. The idea behind listen is that we listen with humility to our community, partners, and each other, learning together to drive action. Dare, we want a city that is not afraid to take risks, that is not afraid to be bold and creative. So we said we dare to be bold and creative, driven by the urgency the people of Denver deserve. The driving force here is the urgency of the outcomes we want to deliver, and that's what keeps us moving and moving with urgency. And equally important is the concept of deliver. We take ownership over every problem, deliver breakthrough solutions, and never do it alone. These are laid out in sequence. We start by listening, we continue by daring, and we conclude by delivering, to make sure these aren't just ambitions, but they're actual outcomes that we're going to make sure to deliver for all the residents of Denver. So that's the framework on mission, vision, and values. We want to talk to you right now about the goals that we have for 2024. And so you'll see we've spread these across 4 different categories. Categories you saw in our initial vision statement, which is a vibrant, affordable, and safe Denver. And I'll walk you through each of these. You'll have copies of them, and so if you want to jump into the details of them, be happy to do that. What you'll see about these goals is that they are ambitious, they are specific, they are measurable, they have timelines to them. These may sound familiar if you lived through House 1000 with us. That was also an effort for us to put together what was a ambitious, measurable, specific goal that we thought could address the scale of a critical city problem. I'll walk you through these and then talk to you a little bit about how we get these done, then I'll open up for questions. We focused on vibrant first. Vibrant Denver, the first goal you see is build a shared vision for a vibrant Denver. We will engage the public across all 11 council districts to envision vibrant neighborhoods and a vibrant downtown, identifying funding for both by December 31st, 2024. In our Affordable Denver category, you'll see 2 goals here. One is our effort that we called House 1000. For our first launch, we now are calling All In Mile High, which is our ongoing effort to get all of our residents who are unsheltered outdoors, indoors, and connected to services. That connotes both, we want to get everybody inside. It also connotes that we want the entire city to be all in on this effort. It is not one department or one government alone. It is a collaborative community partnership. And that is a goal to reach, as you know, a total of 2,000 people moved indoors from unsheltered homelessness by December 31st, 2024. We also have focused on expanding affordability to all the working families across the city, which is why we targeted this 3,000 affordable homes goal. permit, secure, finance, or support the development and preservation of 3,000 long-term affordable housing units by the end of this year. We know Safe Denver is a priority for folks in every neighborhood across the city. They've told me that and us that in both our town halls over the last 6 months and in the conversations before that. We have two key areas of focus here. One is an effort we call Roads to Recovery, which focuses on moving 200 individuals struggling with addiction or mental health out of the criminal justice system and into a coordinated intervention, treatment, and support pipeline by December 31st of 2024. On Safe City, we are focusing on two things. One is reducing violent gun crime by 20% and improving customer satisfaction by 15% by the end of this year. Violent gun crime is obviously the most lethal, most concerning issue we have across the city. We're focusing on that as our first step to create a targeted plan to reduce that greatest of risks. And also the customer satisfaction metric is driven by whenever someone has a contact with our emergency system, they call for help. Do we respond? How quickly do we respond? What results do they get? What actions are taken? And how well do they feel like we've solved that issue? The last category is in addition to these high profile issues, as you know, people expect us to do a world-class job of just providing great services in every part of government, and we are committed to doing that. And so we have two goals around great government. The first is cutting permitting time. We want to re-envision the development permitting process and reduce our city review time by 30% this year to help get a system that works for everybody. And finally, we want to improve city services all across the city, but we are going to start with reducing our response time to the top 3 constituent concerns that we have by 20% in this year alone. So we're going to take those 3 things folks are most worried about, they most ask us about, and they're most concerned about, and drive real aggressive reductions in those by building a system that will help us be more responsive to all the concerns on the list across the entire portfolio. Finally, all of these goals are undergirded by our ability to support and develop our incredible base of employees across the city who deliver this work each day. And that's why we are focused on both improving our employee engagement by 5% this year. That employee engagement metric is a combined metric across multiple factors that we ask people about in an annual survey. It includes things like, would you recommend working here to others? Do you feel supported in your work? Are you clear on your goals? And so that hybrid metric will be one that we'll look at driving increased engagement across all of these. Last one I will share with you is, you might say a couple things, anticipate a few questions. What about other city priorities we don't see on this list? You can go to the next slide. 2 things. We obviously are continuing to be focused on the newcomer influx in the city. We have teams that are developed to deploying and responding to those issues. This does not minimize the importance of that need. What it does is focus on, we know there will be reactive issues that come before the city, for which our job is to be responsive, to be thoughtful, to be humane, to be efficient in our delivery of services. We will continue to do that. But these goals are really focused on our proactive agenda for 2024 for the city. That's why you see that not represented there. Separately, there are hundreds of goals across all 27 agencies that continue to be mission critical for those departments. And individual teams, individuals, employees will have their own aligned goals. Those work in addition to these citywide goals. But what you will see is that those department level and individual goals will ladder up to our citywide goals. So that I want to not ignore that balance. The last one is, you might ask, okay, how do we do these? Because these have been problems for a long time. What is the way in which you take them on? We have set up what we call Tiger teams to help take on each of these citywide goals. The origin of the Tiger team was from the Apollo 13 mission. If you remember, when Apollo 13 set into orbit, they had an explosion that disabled the landing gear, and so there was no way to know how they were going to land that mission successfully. That required people from across all agencies and departments at NASA to work together in a coordinated way with real urgency to figure out how they were going to plan to solve that very critical problem. That has now led to a term in the literature called Tiger teams we use here, which is to say any one of these issues to be solved cannot be solved by one department alone. So for them to be effective, we need cross-collaboration from multiple agencies to do that. So what we have done is structured Tiger teams across all 8 of these key priorities. Can you go back for 1 sec, Bailey? And they have a couple key components. Every city agency, every agency in the city is involved in one of these Tiger teams. So every city employee, every city agency sees themselves directly in the work of one of these citywide goals, in addition to their department goals. In addition to that, each one of these Tiger teams meet every week with me, personally, and or with Jen Ritter or Janelle, our Chief of Staff or our Chief Operating Officer. This was the framework we used on House 1000, where we had cross-disciplinary teams working together with regular access to the mayor and the mayor's office to make sure we were busting barriers, removing obstacles, and collaborating in a comprehensive way. That's what we'll do here to help take these on. If you go to the next slide, this gives you an overview of each of these goals and the departments that are sitting on the Tiger teams for each of these goals. We can send you this document for you to look at. I want to name two things that you may about this. One is you'll see the agencies with direct expertise or governance of these sites involved in them, of these goals. In addition, there are certain values that we think run across all of these priorities. And two of those are first is equity. And so Ben Sanders, our Chief Equity Officer, will serve as an advisor across all of these goals. They'll think about how equity is integrated across all of them. Also, sustainability. So Liz Babcock is our Chief Sustainability Officer, will also be an advisor across all of these departments to help advise on how we are integrating sustainability into all of these goals. So you may not see them as individual members in all of them. They are at-large advisors to each of them, as is our City District Attorney's Office, as is our Chief Financial Officer and our Department of Finance. So that's a little bit about who we are, what we hope to accomplish, and how we hope to accomplish it. And we think this is a critical moment for us to, even in the midst of challenges, get really clear about what our top priorities are and build the teams and structures necessary to deliver on them. So without any further ado, I will stop there. Happy to take questions, comments, feedback. There are members of agency leads who can also jump in if people have content-specific questions, but really grateful for their support and partnership and leadership to get us here.
Mayor, how do you think that the migrant crisis, since that's a focus here in recent weeks and leading to some budget cuts, will impact some of these goals that we have?
Yeah.
Like the all-in mile time.
So first of all, we do have a running Tiger team on the migrant crisis that is the same. Cross-disciplinary teams working together around workforce, around housing, around economic opportunities, around legal supports. So that has its own fully structured team that is taking that on. And as I mentioned, we have two approaches we're taking to manage this. One is we will work to reduce the total number of services we can provide to our newcomers and reduce the total number of newcomers that we can serve as a way to help manage the cost side of that function. And the second is we are looking at how we can make adjustments across agencies across the city to be able to meet that gap. And so our agency has been working on those, bringing proposals through Nicole, our CFO, and our team. And our goal is to be able to help make those hard decisions while minimizing the impact on front-facing services and while maintaining focus on a number of other citywide priorities that will continue to be high priority for us.
Mr. Mayor, can you compare the all-in mile high with House 1000? I mean, will it have the same urgency and same strategies?
Same urgency. It just was. It's no longer 1,000, and so we need to move beyond the first phase of that. On day one, we declared a state of emergency, and we set a big, ambitious goal around that one area of focus, and then brought teams together around the city to do that. That was a strategy I've used before. We believed it would work. It did work, and that became part of the template for how we will structure these other teams. Same degree of urgency, same degree of focus. It is now one of multiple areas of top priority, but it will still have the same cross-disciplinary team. We'll still have the same direct engagement from me and from our senior leadership and the direct engagement of city council and community partners.
Will it rely on the same kind of temporary housing solutions like hotels, motels, micro-communities?
So I'm glad you asked, because in all these we'll have top-level goals, and then we'll have sub-goals underneath them. Those include things like, for instance, the folks that are currently in those transitional housing, we want to move out and up into independent long-term rental housing where they're independently self-sufficient. So our focus is both to move folks out of the current system and up through the pipeline, and then bring new folks in. We obviously have two tiny home villages we'll be opening up in the next month, both at Eladi and at Santa Fe, so we will be adding new sites. We'll also be working on moving people through the sites that we have now more successfully and aggressively. Yes?
One thing that stood out to me as we see you talking about budget cuts in previous weeks is that budget cuts wasn't mentioned in that. However, it's our understanding that you've looked at each person standing behind you and said, we need to cut your budget because of this. Are you still looking at budget cuts, cutting $180 million from the city budget? And what do you tell these people behind you when you say, these are our goals, but you also won't have as much money to do them?
Yeah, we've had those conversations extensively. That financial reality is still the same. We still are working on both avenues, both to look at ways we can reduce budgets to meet this gap, and looking at ways we can reduce costs. We're working on both sides of the lever. We'll have announcements about that coming later this week as well. So we will do both to make this more sustainable for the city long term. But we also think in the middle of a tornado is the most important time to have a clear sense of where you're going and how you plan to get there. And so this is a very significant, very real problem we are managing. There are also other top priorities the city has and departments have that we need to stay focused on, and we're working with these teams on being able to both manage those budget cuts and stay laser focused on the work they want to accomplish and we want to accomplish. We think staying on offense here is critical because we have things that the city residents expect us to deliver, and we're not going to back down from those.
I know your House 1000 and All In Mile High has been your project that you ran on a campaign with, and that has been where a lot of the money has been going to. Is that specific project, House 1000 All In Mile High, is that also going to be cut under these budget cuts?
So we have not made any final decisions yet on cuts on the ones that we announced already. And so all of our departments, all of our agencies, we're going to have to find a way to prioritize. Our mayor's office has done the same thing. We've made cuts, we're making freezes, we're cutting contracts, we're stepping back on the things that we were planning to do. And we as a team have to figure out those same things. And this North Star helps us to say, all right, what is absolutely critical to us being able to accomplish our citywide priorities and our department-wide priorities? I think these leaders are doing an incredible job of doing that. What I've found is often you see the greatest examples of leaders in the most difficult moments. I think they've stepped up to that challenge, and we will find a way through that both recognizes this city's values of inclusion and recognizes our need to commit on services across the whole city, and that's what they and we are working on together. Yes, Joe.
Staying on theme here, I've heard from a couple council members that they'd like to see the state declare a state of emergency, bring down some community to help Denver specifically with the influx of migrants, even though we're not the only city dealing with it. Is the state doing enough? What would you ask of the state? We know that the federal government, you've had your gripes with how they respond.
The state has been a great partner for us to date. We're really grateful for Governor Polis's support and his team's support. They've not only provided dollars, but actual individuals to help us staff these sites. We'll keep working with them and with our state legislators on more ways that they can help. We do think that there are still more resources we need. We know they're looking at providing resources to the Denver Public Schools to help face that need that they've had. And so we think Denver still is carrying the overwhelming share of this statewide impact, and we would love to see additional support, but they have been very, very responsive and helpful to date. As you mentioned, our big surprise and disappointment was the lack of federal resources, but the state has been very engaged. I've talked to the governor about the idea of the state of emergency. We don't think it directly releases a lot more dollars than we currently have available by that declaration. We had a declaration previously, and that helped build the systems and structures we have to operate this response, but we do not believe that it directly activates more resources. There are other ways to activate resources that we're working on with the state, and we'll see where we can get on that.
Mayor, when you say that your administration is going to start reducing the number of migrants that can serve, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean telling people, to go elsewhere? And by how many are you planning to reduce with city support?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little more in depth later this week about that plan that we're going to roll out, I think, on Wednesday, and so we'll talk about both. What we know is it is unsustainable for us to permanently serve the number of people we're serving with the types of services that we're currently providing. And so those are our two biggest cost drivers: how many folks we have and how expensive are the services we provide them. And we have to work on making reductions in both of those. And so we have, that was why things like our length of stay policy and our exit policy, which we have reinstated, was a critical step in starting to manage those numbers down, and it has helped successfully adjust that. We think there are additional ways we can help make that successful, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later this week.
Mayor, do you think like goal setting takes place ahead of a year? And
Yes.
we're already a quarter into this year.
6 weeks. Give us a little bit of time.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We're in the quarter.
Yep,
Can you speak a little bit about the timing of this?
I can.
In this moment of cuts, and then also, why was this work not done and presented in conjunction with the budget?
Yeah, so I'll give, that's a great example, which is I took the oath of office July 17th. The budget was due August. And so we already had a mostly built budget that you inherit as a new mayor at this term. We then needed to hire all of these folks you see before you. Then we had to work with them collaboratively on building the things you see here, both vision, mission, values, and those goals. And so that, and we had two emergencies to manage at the same time. So we deliberately wanted to wait to get these clear until we had the team built to be able to do that. You are right, going forward in future years, this will be a process. We'll start with the budget in July, goal setting for 2025. We'll have draft goals in the fall. We work through with teams and departments, and we'll release those before the start of the following year. That's why I said this is both a seasoned organization and a startup at the same time. For many of us, this is a startup. We are 30 days, 60 days, 180 days in, and there's new vision, new goals, new priorities, and so new team members. And so we needed to both get through that building together and then be able to start this process. This is our first version of it, and then now we'll be able to, in future years, do them much more proactively, so we'll have them ready before the calendar year begins.
In community planning and development, what's the status of the head?
Yeah, we have just hired the new head for CPD. We will have an announcement of that person in the next 48 hours. So excited about that, and that will be coming soon to a theater near you. Yes.
Obviously, you guys use a lot of online dashboards to report out stuff, Housing 1000. Where can residents, citizens track these goals and how the city's doing them?
We will have public dashboards on these, and this is part of our commitment to transparency. We want you to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. We'll do quarterly updates on these. Some of these are not a day-to-day update in the way that House 1000 is. We, as a team of agency leaders, will sit down once a quarter and look at our progress, diagnose what's working, what's not working, how to make adjustments. And this is also why these weekly meetings of the Tiger teams are so important, is you have to be able to iterate these solutions much more quickly. But we will have public dashboards on these. They'll probably be ready at the end of Q1. Which remind us is about 6 weeks away. But that will be the goal, is for us to do those regular check-ins, to be able to share those. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, can you offer more detail about how you're going to define success at the end of the year for the goal for making downtown more vibrant, or what are some of the specific metrics you're looking at?
Yeah, you bet. So I think there are two key components of this for us. One is building with community members a shared vision for what we both want a vibrant downtown to look like and vibrant neighborhoods to look like. And so that is a community engagement process and a stakeholder process. We also then want to be able to identify funding sources to be able to support both of those visions. So success for us would be at the end of the year, having a clear shared vision of what we want to get done, both downtown and for neighborhood activation, and having clear identified funding sources to do those two things.
So a lot of community engagement, anything
In terms of specific on, yeah, so we've talked about a number of things. I'll say specifically for me, we want downtown to grow from being a central business district to a central neighborhood district. We want it to be a place where folks live and work and play all the time. That means more access to things like affordable housing in downtown where workers can afford to live, so it's not just luxury apartments. It means more access to childcare, so folks can afford to raise kids downtown and to bring their kids to work downtown when they come to work downtown. It means looking at things like commercial to residential conversion for existing commercial vacancy that we have in those downtown areas. And it looks like activation. It means things you saw in efforts like our Dynamic Downtown Denver grant program, which is how do we find ways to activate arts and community engagement so there is a sense of vibrance and momentum there. It'll be more shared public spaces where people can come and enjoy parks and outdoor activities in downtown. So those are all a part of our broader vision, but we believe everyone in the city owns downtown because it's everybody's living room, and so we want to make sure that all the neighborhoods have a chance to get feedback on what they want from their downtown. Yes, Noah?
Yeah, so you mentioned 20% reduction in crime in 2024, that's a goal. What was the collaboration like between you, the police department, and the sheriff's department on this goal?
Yeah, we have been working together on this, and a lot of the policies and practices that I think the police department has been pioneering are part of what give us the hope that there is a real path to do this. Things like the Place Network Investigation, which is a strategy to focus on areas where there are current hotspots of crime. And what we love about this team is this team includes both Office of Children's Affairs, includes economic development, includes social equity innovation, includes law enforcement, includes arts and venues, because our belief is that in a lot of these places, the best way to stop crime is to prevent it by more healthy activation of services, supports, and sometimes it's lived environment like lighting and community activation. So we are going to pursue, those goals are ambitious. We also think they're research-based, that there are cities that have done versions of that, and we have had places where Chief has led pilots of these strategies that have shown success at that rate. And so we think that's the right place to start. What we want to do is take this into a much broader conversation. What are we doing to activate those neighborhoods and to keep them safe at the same time?
Mayor, I'll take two questions.
Mr. Johnston, una respuesta en español.
Sí.
La primera parte es cuando usted puede reiterar en español que se va a tener un anuncio sobre la reducción de los nuevos migrantes que está atendiendo la ciudad. Y segundo, que si usted le quiere enviar un mensaje al alcalde de Colorado Springs y al alcalde de Aurora, que ya conversaron ustedes tres sobre salud mental, pero ¿por qué no conversar sobre el tema de los nuevos migrantes?
Yeah,
¿Hay
gracias.
esa posibilidad de esa conversación?
Sí, yo he hablado con los dos sobre eso muchas veces, son amigos y vamos a trabajar juntos en eso. Pero por tu pregunta, sabemos que lo que tenemos que hacer aquí en Denver para resolver ese problema es que tenemos que hacer unas cortas aquí a los servicios que Denver da a nuestros residentes. Y también tenemos que cortar algunos de los precios que en este momento pagamos para apoyar los migrantes que han llegado. Y vamos a hablar más esta semana de cómo vamos a hacer eso, pero tenemos que hacer los dos. Y también voy a seguir hablando con el alcalde de Colorado Springs y de Aurora, los dos, y de otros alcaldes en Colorado que quieren trabajar con nosotros juntos. Sabemos que esas personas llegan todavía al estado de Colorado, no solamente a Denver, y queremos trabajar juntos con ellos.
Usted está enterado que hoy Aurora va a aprobar una ordenanza en la que piden coordinación entre municipalidades y non-profit para traslado de migrantes. ¿Tiene usted alguna reacción sobre eso que va a ocurrir hoy en la tarde?
Yo he hablado con el alcalde de Aurora muchas veces sobre esa situación. Queremos trabajar juntos con ellos, estamos emocionados para trabajar juntos con ellos, entonces si quieren ayudarnos o si quieren trabajar juntos, queremos hablar sobre eso, pero hemos hablado muchas veces, vamos a seguir en conversaciones y vamos a hacer lo que podemos para hacerlo. Gracias. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for taking your time. We think this is one that is critically important for people across the city to have access to what the city's top priorities are, how we plan to execute them, how they can track them and hold us accountable for those results, and how we will work in a very different way to be collaborative in taking on these toughest of problems, because we do believe that these problems are solvable and that we are the ones to solve them. So we're delighted to work to get that done. Thank you all so much for being here. And cut. It's always the same. I was going to go sit down and I was thinking faster, so it was awkward. More awkward to have everybody leave at that point and we were standing solo. Great job. Easier questions than